Kim phoned me up and asked me to speak, you know, and I said, well, what's Events Prof about? It's about. And she said, it's about events. Yeah, okay. So that's what I'm speaking, about events. Yeah. And then I just kind of, because I'm being lazy, I just use that as the theme for everything it's about. And so the most important thing is, if this clicker ever works properly, is about me. Okay, so so everything's about, and then we're going to lead on from there. Okay, so why should you bother listening to me and what I know a bit about events and so on? Well, I work for, most of my work I do for a company called OpenJaw Technologies. I'll tell you a little bit about them in a second, because I guarantee none of you will ever be a client of OpenJaw, so I'm not going to spend that much time on it, okay? I'm a columnist in Marketing Week magazine in the UK. I helped set up DMX Dublin in 2012. I'm an investor in a good few e-commerce businesses, and Irish Auto Parts is one of those, and I'm a judge at both the UK and Irish Marketing Awards. So I'm quite a busy person, and I spend a lot of my time going to events or being part of events or attending big events. And specifically, oh yeah, this is about the company I work for. We sell e-commerce software to very large airlines around the world. We have no customers in Ireland. We have one customer in England, and every single other customer is in China, Asia. I think there's one or two in Latin America. So we have no customers at all. And we run very large, high-scale events, which I'll tell you about in a second, for these customers. Right, so why should you bother listening to me? So I've done, curated and put out 8 DMX Dublins, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. 6 OpenJaw conferences, 4 of them in China, Poland, Spain, Poland this year, Spain, and Dublin. These are very large scale events with 200 people, a budget of 150 to 200 grand per event, okay? And I'll show you some pictures from that in a minute. Has anybody been to China? Been to China? So I can basically say anything and nobody can tell me I'm wrong. So I will say anything in a few minutes and nobody will actually believe me. I also run my own personal conference, an invite-only conference for about 20 people who I know in the marketing and digital marketing game. It's an invite-only, and I run my own personal event in January every year as well. So it's 20 people to 850, maybe 900 at DMX. So DMX, let me talk about DMX. So in November 2012, I went to an event in London, and it was called Jump. And it was, at the time, the whole digital marketing world was very, very hot. And I came back and I spoke to the Marketing Institute. I'm a member of the Marketing Institute, and I do a lot of teaching through them. And I said, do you know what we should do? We should run a conference called, you know, that's really about digital marketing. And I was a bit older and wiser than I was a few years earlier. And they said, well, what do you think it should be about? And I said, I'll come back to you on that, okay? And one of the things with DMX was a very specific approach. Hopefully I can show you that approach. Okay, so what is DMX Dublin? It's Ireland's largest marketing conference now. We started with 400 in 2013. In 2017, we had 1,000 people. Last year, we had 900 people, okay? And it's on one day in March, and it's basically for marketers, advertisers, digital marketers, brand managers, everything. Anybody who's in the marketing game in Ireland typically turns up at DMX Dublin. Now, we thought we had a one-year event maybe, and here we are 8 years later. We already have speakers lined up for 2020 lined up. And it's also now got a name internationally. So I'm going to be a little bit of the backstory on that, but it's got a name internationally where we can attract the best speakers. It's always a sellout, but I'm going to give you a tip on how to sell out a conference as well. And if I don't tell you, remind me so I won't forget, okay? Because I'm a bit forgetful. So what's the format? Now this is the bit to take away, guys, okay? It's a multi-stream format. So there's 3, 4, the first year was 4, now there's 6 on at any one time competing with each other, okay? So this got a lot of pushback from my partners in the Marketing Institute. They were like, no, 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 don't do that, that's bad, okay? Because people won't be able to make a decision. I'm like, no, that's the idea. The idea is that they go, amazing speaker 1, amazing speaker 2, amazing speaker 3, amazing speaker 4, I've got to make a compromise, okay? Now, it was pretty new in 2012, okay? And that's why I said I got the idea from the Jump conference in London. Nowadays, it's very common, okay? But I would argue to you that if you can create that tension within whatever you're running, could be just 2 streams, but you go all out, and you specifically go all out at the start of the event to make some of your best speakers there. Okay. Now, This year it was 6 streams, and we do allow an hour and a half plus. We made a mistake the first year. So the first year it was like, first session, over, run to the next session, over, run to the next session, over, run to the next session. And now there's a half an hour, 25 minutes more or less between each session, okay? Because people actually didn't want to run between each session. They wanted to go and talk and meet people, because it's the one day in the year you'll get to meet all your clients, all the people you haven't seen for the rest of the year in a nice, casual, relaxing environment, okay? And where it's kind of very positive vibe going on all the time. So it's very important that you think about your conferences through that lens. And I'll talk a little bit about personal opinion later, but a lot of people bring their own thing to the table when they're putting things together. It could be anything. I mean, this event, any event, and they bring their own demeanor and thoughts about the world to the table. And that's a mistake, okay? Your view on the world is totally irrelevant. I don't care about your view or your opinion. Okay, I'm not very PC, by the way, if you're wondering. Okay, I am not politically correct at all, okay? I don't care. I literally, in my classes, people say, well, I think, and I literally shut them down and go in a nice way, and I say, I don't care about your opinion. This is a customer for your event or your product doesn't care about you. He just cares about what it's in for him, what's in it for them, with him, if the phrase is, what's in it for me. So the networking piece is literally the key part of the event. It turns out that's like 30% of the value of the event, but that wasn't the anticipated outcome in the first place. Right, oh, here we go again. Right, now, the speakers. If you're not into marketing, you probably wouldn't know all these speakers, but these are pretty much the creme de la creme of marketing in Ireland and internationally. So when Obama was elected for the second time in 2012, we were able to get his head of digital marketing over for 2013. Okay, the best guys in London and Dublin that I know are, come along to this event. There's one guy, I think, is he here? Where's it? Let me just pick out one or two here. Ronan Guilfoyle from Amazon talked about the Amazon Innovation Program. Martin Weigel is one of the best known advertising guys, strategy guys in Europe, basically. And he turned up and did the keynote. And who else? There's a few other interesting ones there. A couple of guys who wrote books. Adam Morgan invented the concept of what's called challenger brands. Have you ever heard the word challenger brand? That guy invented them there. Guys from Lego, guys from BBC, blah, blah, blah. And the question is, how do we get these people? How do you think we get these people? Money? No, we don't spend any money. Everybody speaks for free. I think we spent maybe $4 grand on speakers in the 8 years. But they include flights. How do we get them? Kinda, yeah, close, yeah. Hi, I'm Colin. Do you want to speak at my event? No, not quite, yeah. But close. How do we get them? Anybody, how do we get them?
Tell them about the audience you're
A
gonna...
little bit, but the most important thing is we ask, okay? I know it's a bit trivial, that sounds trivial, but actually the point is we ask, yeah? And I just go, Martin Weigel, I love your stuff, do you want to speak? And like literally, and I mean, this is a guy I looked up to, and I'm like, oh my God, I've met him, oh Jesus. And then he's like got a brain the size of, a house. And you're talking to him going, okay, how did he say yes? What's he doing talking to me? Yeah? So the most important thing is target, go above your pay grade and target the best people, and you'll see. Now there is a slight change over the last few years. A lot more people are saying you need to pay me, the high profile guys, you need to pay me to turn up. But in every industry, there's some high profile people who want to help out. The last point I'll make will be about the sort of idea you want to have about your conference. So, here we go. Oh, did I go too far there? Oh my God, I can't work this. Okay. Okay, I'm going to use this instead because that's much easier. So, the conference is a success because we literally think through every single aspect of the conference. So I curate the conference, who's going to speak, who's not going to speak. But then I go and say we have a person at the start who's going to drag them all into a room so they have an experience of being in the room together, and a person at the end of the day who drags them backs them into the room again so that they don't just kind of all peter off into the distance. Okay? Because we run it in the Aviva, there's no bars nearby, so it's very difficult for us to go and say we'll meet you somewhere later. I would say in general there's a dearth of really good spaces for conferences between say 400 and 800 in Dublin. in general. For OpenJaw as well, we basically stopped having our conferences in Dublin. The venues are too expensive, the hotels are too expensive, and they're just not good enough. The venues in China are 10 times better than any venues in Dublin. Okay? So we'll come back to some of that. So actually, I'll talk about that. This is the picture from the OpenJaw Summit in Madrid last year. And what's the one striking thing you see here? It's pretty obvious. Well, besides the purple. So yeah, it's a good point. Spending a lot of money on design. I mean, we really go over the top on nth degree design down to every little pixel. Now, luckily, the chief exec is very supportive of that, but people notice. They notice, yeah? And so when you walk into the room with these lighting and all this sort of stuff, people go, wow. And actually, the event, just like what Kim is doing with VoxGeek, the event for OpenJaw used to change the brand. They used to think it was this kind of crappy, you know, techie, heavy-duty, boring business. Then they walk in the door and they see that. And they walk in the door and see this sort of stuff, these super high-end visuals. This is an 8K screen that's 15 meters long, and that's 4 meters high. Now, we have one of these kind of funny learning from the far side of the world. I ran a conference in a place called Sanya in southwestern China. And we were really naive. I mean, we hadn't got a clue what we were doing, but we had to run the conference for the Chinese airlines. And we walk in, and then there's a screen the size of a house there. And we're like, okay, this is where it's at, okay? So in China, everywhere has full, you've been to Piccadilly Circus, you know the big signs there that are like super, yeah? Those screens there, there's a special name for them, can't remember the name for them, but they're made up of individual boxes that are all kind of glued together. And they are better than watching television, okay? And when you've got, as we did in Dalian in China last year, it was 18 meters across, okay? So from here to the canal, yeah? And 4 meters high. It was phenomenal. And you walk in the door, and that was it. Everybody just went, wow, like that. So the screens in Ireland are notoriously poor. Even brand new hotels were like, you're having a laugh here, okay? This is like 1995. So what I would do is look abroad and look at what some people are doing with the big screens and spend money on the screens. Any hotel now that I go to that says, oh, we have a screen and they offer me this, I don't give them any business at all in Dublin, at all, period. I don't care who you are. It's like, and you walk in, you go, do you have this? And they go, yeah, we have the pull down. And you're like, what's this? You know, are we going to use Windows 95 as well? Okay. So, now adding all these up, both the Chinese conferences and the all the stuff I've been doing in Europe and all the DMX Dublin conferences, I've kind of like evaporated all these ideas into a couple of thoughts, okay? Value creation in curation. I came up with that rather than having Rob, so I don't know how I managed to come up with something that actually had alliteration in it, but the word I want you to think about with a conference is you are there to create value, okay? And this sounds a weird thing to say, isn't it that obvious, Colin? No, that's not that obvious, because most of the world we operate is in the value extraction game, yeah? So if you take, say, let's talk about brands I hate, and I'm a marketer and I hate bank brands, because they're in the value extraction mechanism. They want to take money out of your pocket and give you the least amount of value back, okay? Telecom businesses, they want to take most of the money out of your pocket and then give you a little bit back. You can't do that for an event. You've got to totally invert that, okay? You've got to actually over-deliver, because you're creating an experience that they're hopefully not going to get elsewhere and that they'll remember. So you're creating a service, a thing that they can't even imagine. So you're in the value creation, and the curation and how you think about this is really super important. Now, we don't see a lot of that in Ireland. Sorry, I'm on my hobby horse here, but we don't see a lot of value creation in many businesses in Ireland. Luckily, all the startups that are coming through, all the stuff these folks who are working here and we work do, they've got to create incredible amount of value. VoxGeek is the same. It's like they've got to create incredible amount of value just to get the customer. Whereas the realm we live in Ireland, most businesses don't. They're just not in that game. They're in the monopoly game, okay? So it's really important. The game you're in is value creation. Sure, you're in the experience game, but most of all, you want everybody to walk out and go, wow, I am a different person from when the moment I walked in. And indeed, when I do my own classes, and even my kind of sole objective tonight is to say, how can I create value for folks here so that they walk away and go, hey, I've not just learned something, I've actually, something's clicked in my mind. Yeah, so that's what value creation is about. So this is a little bit of a trick question, but I'll ask it anyway. What's the only thing that matters when you're running an event? Now, you can tell me I'm wrong, but I believe this is the most important thing. What's the only thing that matters to getting people when you're running an event? The thing that should take up 95% of your headspace. Top of the class. Yep. Getting the attendees there. Sounds lame, yeah, but I'm full of lame kind of pieces of philosophy, yeah. The only thing you have to lie awake at night thinking about. The assumption is if you've created the value, done the content creation, everything else, every other conversation has to be about how are we getting the punters there? How are we getting the punters there? How are we getting the punters there? Yeah? There was an old Christy Moore song, which I can't remember the name of it, but he talks about how, you know, the wife keeping you at home when the Late Late Show is on. Yeah? You probably remember that song, yeah? And it's very hard to get people off the couch, off the watching the Late Late Show, to get out and go to your event, the metaphorical Late Late Show, okay? And to come to your event. So, the number one thing is like, how do I get upon this event? And that is the first item on your agenda every time you're talking about the event. Now, we do that with DMX. And the inside story on that is the second most important thing to make this happen. So the most important thing to make this happen, what do you need? What asset do you need? It's not a trick question, by the way. Yeah, kind of, yeah. But not quite, but yeah. It's much more pragmatic than that, okay? What do you need to get people? What's the thing you need in your little kit bag? An email database, okay? So, you come to me and you say, Colin, I heard you speak at WeWork. You are tall, dark, and good-looking, and incredibly witty, yeah? So can you help me with my conference? The next word out of my mouth is, I'm assessing you for you a value creator person, but you don't have to tell me that because I'll kind of know. Then the second question is, what's the size of your database? And if you say, database, who needs it? Then the conversation's over. Okay? It is very, very important you have some level. Now, you can't rely on Meetup. You can't rely on any of this stuff. You got to, if you want to have a decent event, you got to know. For DMX Dublin, we have people dialing for dollars. We get on the phone and they phone at the companies. Hi, do you want to do a group booking? Do you want to come? Blah, 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 blah. And they do this for 6 weeks leading up to it. Now, I know because I'm the worst in the world to get out and go to a conference because I forget. I've got a head like a sieve. Oh, I'm supposed to be at this event. You know, the Late Late Show's on. Well, I leave. Oh, yeah. And I'm an incentivized, motivated person with money who wants to go to events and it's like a crane getting me out of the office. Yeah, you need a crane to get me out of the office. Okay, so the most important thing that matters is that you never underestimate how difficult it is to get people off the couch or out of the office. Like, I mean, really don't. Like, really, you could have, you know, Barack Obama, you know, stand beside whoever else it is. They still won't go. You've got to, and so the other thing that happens is people go, Colin, is it right to send out, should I send out 1 email a week? I'm like, every day, send it out. Yeah? How often, what's the open rate on most emails? 12%, yeah, anywhere between 12 and 20%, yeah? So 80% of the people have not seen your email every time you send it out. Every single time, 80% of the people have not sent your email. And they definitely have not seen your update on Twitter. Yeah, they've definitely not seen your little Instagram picture. Yeah?
How do you get around GDPR?
You need to be more specific on the question. Like, how do I don't get around GDPR, or have a database that people already opted in, or have a partner with a database of people already opted in. In Marketing Institute, I don't have to care about, with DMX, I don't have to care about about GDPR because they've already come all the previous years. Yeah? Sorry, a 2-second rant on GDPR. Everything you read in the papers is wrong. Most things you hear from the lawyers are totally wrong. Okay, any lawyers here? Okay, good. Fine. It was just a rort for lawyers to earn a lot of money. GDPR is about keeping Facebook and Google and wrapping Facebook under Google, okay? Most SMEs, most of you guys, you're not going to get a person going, you sent me an email to your conference, I'm bringing you to the data protection commissioners. How often will that happen in the history of time? Never. Because 80% of people aren't opening your email, and those who do, unsubscribe. I've sent about 25 million emails out in my career, so I know a lot about it. Okay. So the third thing, if I get this thing going, is persuasion. Now, we're going to get into a little kind of way of thinking I want you to understand. So this is from a very famous advertising guy, Bill Bernbach. An important idea not communicated persuasively is like having no idea at all. If you've gone to the whole work, I've got this great conference call, great, and nobody turns up, you've wasted your time. But if I don't do the homework on the messaging and the thinking and how I'm going to tell people about it, you also haven't done the homework. You know, a lot of people, it's kind of a bit of a problem in Ireland, is that people think I've created, if you build it, they will come. Guess what? You can't get them off the couch. Okay? There is no such thing, if you build it, they will come. It's hard enough to make money from a conference that you cannot then go and waste time and say, yeah, well, we sent out a few emails, and yeah, I didn't want to spend that much money on the design because it was expensive. Yeah, all this sort of stuff, that's all nonsense. The persuasion and getting people to go is as important as the idea to do it in the first place. And I'm very, very happy to be able to put a Bee Gees picture in my presentation because it doesn't happen to me that often to be able to do so. But in the immortal words of Barry Gibb, it's only words, and words are all I have to take my heart away. And why is that? Because he's using copywriting. Yeah. DMX Dublin, alliteration, yeah? All the words, I spent most of December 2012 writing out all the words, all the copy, all the things that we want. And I'm literally sitting there thinking of copywriting techniques to convince people. And I'm not a copywriter, yeah? But I train myself to go and say, what are the trigger words that people want to do? And I integrated this into the whole way of thinking. We use keywords that work, not some banal stuff. We use kind of very high-end words that attract a different part, a higher level abstraction in the brain, not some random, come along to our event, it's great, there's great speakers. No, we don't do that at all. Okay? So copy counts. Anybody here got an English language degree? No, okay, sometimes there is. If you can write, you can make a fortune. I think it's the best skill to have these days. Okay, next. I'll go old school here. Now, communications. This is Alistair Campbell, quite a controversial character, but this is something you really got to tune into, okay? So just when the communicator is getting bored with saying something, that's where there is an outside chance of reaching the outer radar of public opinion. In other words, he's not being crude, he's not being horrible, but it's just really difficult to permeate people's heads. Okay, so with the open job, DMX Dublin, 8 years in, we still work as hard to get the message that the conference on, where it's at, what's happening, and who's speaking. And yet still, I walk in the first day, at 9 o'clock on the first day, and people I know who are personal friends of mine, who I've invited as personal guests to come along, go, so Colin, who's speaking? And I want to go, do you read the whole thing? Okay, and we literally write all the emails out going, Dear Kim, DMX Dublin is on, and at 9 o'clock it's this, and like really explicit writing, okay? And then when I do PR interviews and stuff like that, I go and say the same thing till I'm sick of it. Well, DMX Dublin is the largest marketing conference in Ireland. It's got 1,000 people attending, and this year our speakers are this, But we really set it up that it's like 4 different streams on at any one time. It's really competing against each other. I've said it 1,000 times, and I say it 1,000 times, and I don't deviate from the script. Yeah? Those of you old enough to remember, me in other words, the guy who used to run Dunn Stores. Anybody know Dunn Stores? Yeah? There's a guy called Ben Dunn, senior. And his only answer when he was ever interviewed, we'd say, so Mr. Dunn, tell me what's happening with the stores. And they'd go like that, and he'd say, Dunn Stores Better Value beats them all every day. That was it. For 40 years. Dunn Stores Better Value beats them all. That's you. Yeah, when you're talking about your conference, greatest conference in the world, 12,000 people attending, yeah. You never deviate from the script, because just when you're sick of hearing yourself, you might just have permeated the outer layer of my skull. Yeah? It's a sad world, but people have a lot on. They can't tune into stuff. You need to really over-communicate to just basically get people out their asses up thinking. Now, this is not just for DMX. So we're running these conferences for OpenJaw, and the biggest bane of my life is getting the people there, because they're going to fly in from all over the globe, 5 continents, turn up, yeah? And we never deviate. The copy we use, everything is like, we change maybe 5 words in every email and every communication, just to kind of make sure they don't think it's the same thing. We might change the visual, but that's it. Everything is identical, yeah? So, and everybody underestimates how difficult it is. So just, and like it sounds weird, you think you need to freshen it up, you don't. You say the same thing, you communicate the same thing all the time. Now here's a guarantee, it's a 100% guarantee, the sun's gonna rise in the morning, number 1, and number 2, that when you go to the next event with Kim, you will not have remembered a word I said. You just remember vague ideas and concepts. That's just the way the world is. So that's why you gotta keep saying the same thing all the time. Now, Steal Like an Artist, I'm a big music fan, and this album is probably the best-selling jazz album in the world. Since 1959 anyway, and you can buy that music. Like, you can go in to the shops and buy what's called the sheet music with every single improvisation, you know, the actual notes that Bill Evans played, the actual drum riff Paul Chambers had on drums, Elvin Jones had on drums, and Paul Chambers bass. You can buy them, and you can go home on your piano and play them. What are the chances of you sounding like Miles Davis, Elvin Jones, and Paul Chambers? 0. Yeah? And so people have a real problem with this when I say, I want you to steal. I want you to steal other ideas and copy them. Because they go, oh no, that's not right. Did you not tell them? I'm like, okay, here's the music from Miles Davis. Do you want it? Actually, by the way, when you study jazz, they do a whole thing called transcriptions, and you've got to write it out yourself so you could play like Miles. Yeah? So people have a real problem with this. No, I openly state I've never had an original idea in my head. Yeah? But then when you study the artists, the David Bowies, the Miles Davis, and all the rest of it, and you read what they say, Bob Dylan say, I copied this guy. The Rolling Stones copied the blues players from the 50s and 60s and 40s. Nobody is original. I don't want you to come up with original ideas. But once you imitate somebody else, you will assimilate these ideas, and that's where the innovation will come from. By assimilating the ideas in your mind, and I don't care what the topic is. You might say, Colin, I can't write. Okay, go to your favorite conference in the world, go to the website, take the first word, put it down on a piece of paper, then the second word and third word, and come up with 3 different names for the same thing using thesaurus.com. Bang. You've imitated, you've assimilated, and you've innovated. Got it? Got it? Clear? So everything matters. So this is kind of a weird thing to say, but the bane of my life is the mistake when I go and say, I think we got that one, so I'm not going to spend any time on that. So I'll tell you a horror story. The conference before this, okay? In Dublin, there's 200 people, the minister, everybody. It's 8:30. Actually, it's around, I discovered part of this around 8:10. But at 8:30, due to start in half an hour, my very first big conference for OpenJaw, the guy's putting together all the slides, he's sitting beside me and he said, Colin, I can't get any of the slides to work. Nothing's working. Nothing. We have no slides. Oh, for the next 8 hours we have no slides. No, I got nothing. Okay. Rob, why do we have nothing, Rob? Well, what I did was, they were all sitting on the server back in the office, and then I just cut and paste them over to my laptop, and then I took my laptop, and that's what I have here. And then at this stage, I'm like going, okay, So why did you do that? Well, you know, blah, 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 blah. Rob, get on it. And of course, shouting at people in these contexts in high pressure situations is not any use at all. It's just like, okay, Rob, can we just step through what we need to do? And he is having a meltdown. It's now 10 to 9. People are due in the door in 10 minutes. We have no slides, which we have spent 4 weeks on and 20 grand. No slides, okay? Now, what actually happened was he thought it was okay to go and say, well, I just transfer them over. But when you transfer slides over, some bastard out somewhere takes them, waves some dust on it, and then screws it up with all the fonts and all the layouts when you go into a new laptop. In 100% of cases, okay? So Rob, go down to the office and get them over. Well, I don't have the keys. Mary is coming in late today, so she's in at 10:30, so I won't have access to 10:30. Okay, yeah, so we have nothing. So then it's like, can we just get the first slide deck done? Yeah, we'll do that. How long will it take? 10 minutes. Let's get that done, and then go from there, okay? So simple things. You think the slides are gonna work? They don't work. You think he has backup? He doesn't have backup, yeah? You think it's gonna work? It doesn't work. You think the font's gonna work? They're not gonna work. You think the video's gonna work? It's not gonna work. You think your keynote speakers, you turn up, 2 hours to go, I ain't coming. Yeah? Yeah? Everything goes wrong. Everything. Yeah? And if you're responsible, you don't let people say, yeah, I'm coming up with the slides. No, no, no. You get an AK-47, you put it to their head, and you say, is the original one sitting there? Is there a backup sitting here? Did you go over every single slide and every single thing? And by the way, the third event we ran with the same guy, sure enough, halfway through it, one particular thing didn't work. Yeah? Nothing works. Even though you tried it the day before and sat down and went through every slide at 1 o'clock in the morning, which I have done 1,000 times. Nothing works. Okay, so my final point is your true goal with your event, okay? And this is kind of what Kim is doing here as well. And it's a little insight into how to think. What you want to do is create a scene. What you want to do is create a vibe where a set of people love the stuff that you're doing, okay? So Brian Eno is an incredible creative artist, but he goes and says, what is a scenius? It's genius mixed with a scene, okay? And fertile scenes involve lots of people. Some of them artists, some of them collectors, some of them curators, thinkers, theorists, people who create a different kind of ecology of talent. And now that ecology rose some wonderful work. He's talking about working in London in the late 60s and 70s with bands and artists and so on. But you, by curating your events and putting them together, what you want is to create a scene. A scene of amazing people that you can call on and they can call you at any time. That's the higher level game that you're involved in when you're putting together conferences. And that, folks, is that. Thank you very much for your time.